My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 37 years old. Until one Tuesday night, I believed my home was the one place where nobody could walk in and tell me how to live. I had been married to Daniel for 6 years. We weren't rich, but we had built a comfortable life together. Our house was modest, with 3 bedrooms, a backyard, and a kitchen I had turned into my favorite room. Daniel worked in insurance, while I managed a small design business from home. We had routines, arguments, inside jokes, and evenings that made marriage feel safe. That night, at 9:03 p.m., the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my mother-in-law, Linda, stood there with my sister-in-law, Megan. Behind them were 3 enormous suitcases. I stared at the luggage. "Is everything okay?" Linda smiled as if nothing unusual was happening. "We're moving in." For a second, I thought I had misheard her. "Moving in?" Megan rolled one suitcase across my entryway. "Mom said Daniel already talked to you." I turned toward the living room. Daniel was standing there. He looked uncomfortable, but not surprised. My stomach tightened. "You knew?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Emily, they need somewhere to stay for a while." "A while." Linda was already walking toward the hallway. "We'll explain everything tomorrow. Tonight, we're exhausted." Then Megan handed me a sheet. At the top, in bold letters, were 2 words: House Rules. I almost laughed. Then I started reading. Breakfast at 6 a.m. daily. Laundry every morning. No loud music. No unexpected guests. Keep the kitchen clean. Then I reached the last rule. We get your bedroom. I looked up. "Excuse me?" Linda turned around. "You and Daniel can use the guest room. Megan and I need the larger space." My mouth went dry. I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to say something, anything. He just stood there. "Daniel," I said quietly, "did you agree to this?" He hesitated. Then he gave me the answer I was afraid of. "They're family, Emily. Please, just keep the peace tonight." That sentence hurt more than the rules. Because I wasn't standing in my home anymore. I was standing in a house where everyone seemed to have a place except me. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Linda's voice. "We're family," as if those 2 words gave her permission to rewrite my life. At 6 the next morning, my bedroom door opened without a knock. Linda stood there. "Breakfast," she said. I sat up. "What?" "You know the rules. I expect breakfast at 6. I looked at the clock. 6:02. Then I remembered the suitcases. I knew something was terribly wrong, but I stayed quiet night. I walked into the kitchen and found Megan sitting at the table. Linda was inspecting my cabinets. "This cereal is terrible," she said. "You should buy the one I like." I stared at her. "This is my kitchen." Linda smiled. "Our kitchen now." By noon, my house barely looked like mine. Megan had moved my decorative pillows into a closet because she said they were too fancy. Linda rearranged the pantry. My towels disappeared from the downstairs bathroom. When I asked where they went, Megan shrugged. I needed the cabinet. Nobody asked me. Nobody apologized.
"And Daniel?"
He kept saying the same thing. "Just give them some time." That was his answer to everything. When I complained about the laundry rule, he said, "Mom is stressed." When I told him Linda had gone through my kitchen drawers, he said, "She's trying to help." When Megan announced that my friends shouldn't visit because the house was too crowded, Daniel said, "Maybe don't have people over." "Do you hear yourself?" He sighed. "Emily, they're going through a difficult situation." "So am I." He had no answer. That evening, I heard laughter from the living room. Linda and Megan were talking to a relative on speakerphone. I stopped in the hallway when I heard Linda say, "We're staying here until things settle down. Emily will manage everything." My hands went cold. Until things settle down? That wasn't a temporary visit. They had already decided their future included my house. Later that night, while everyone slept, I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to scream. I needed facts. I checked our finances, property documents, and Daniel's recent messages. Then I found something that made my heart sink. Daniel had promised his family something about our house. Something I had never agreed to. I stared at the message on Daniel's laptop for almost a full minute. Daniel had written, "Once we get settled, Mom can have the master bedroom. Emily won't make a big deal about it." Linda had replied, "Good. I knew you would handle her." Handle her. When Daniel came home, I was sitting at the dining table with his messages printed in front of me. "You read my messages?" I read the messages that explain why 3 people are living in my house. "Emily, listen."
No.
"You listen." I pushed the papers toward him. "You promised them my bedroom. I thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" "That Mom and Megan don't have anywhere else right now." "That doesn't explain why you made decisions about our home without me." Finally, the truth came out. Linda had been struggling financially after losing her apartment. Megan had fallen behind on rent. Daniel had promised they could stay with us until they were back on their feet. But there was more. He had told them they could stay for several months, maybe longer. He had even told Linda that once she moved in, she could help run the household. "So you weren't asking me to help your family," I said. "You were giving them control over my home." Daniel shook his head. "That wasn't my intention, but it was the result." Before he could answer, Linda appeared in the doorway. "You're making this much bigger than it needs to be." I turned toward her. "If this is temporary, why did you bring house rules?" She folded her arms. "Because someone needs to keep this household organized." "You mean you?" Her expression hardened. "You're being selfish." Megan walked in behind her. "We're family. You could make things easier." I looked at all 3 of them. For 2 days, I had tried to be patient. I had listened. I had cooked. I had stayed quiet. But now I understood. They weren't waiting for me to accept their situation. They were waiting for me to surrender. I looked at Daniel. "The problem isn't your family anymore. It's you." He lowered his eyes. "I need tonight to think." They assumed that meant I was giving in. They were wrong. That night, I opened my laptop again. And this time, I started making a plan. I was still awake at 5:12 in the morning. I had spent the night going through our property documents and messages Daniel exchanged with his family. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for clarity. What I found confirmed my worst fear. Daniel had promised his mother they could stay for 6 months. He had even told her that I would eventually accept it. He had made decisions about our home as though my opinion didn't matter. So, I made my own decision. At 6 a.m., Linda opened my bedroom door. "Breakfast," she announced. I walked into the kitchen carrying the printed house rules. Linda smiled.
Good.
"You're finally following the schedule." I placed the paper on the table.
No.
Her smile disappeared. "These rules are finished." Megan looked up.
What?
I turned toward Daniel. "I found her messages. I know what you promised them." Daniel's face changed. "Emily, please."
No.
"You asked me to keep the peace."
I did.
"But you never asked if I agreed to any of this." Linda slammed her hand against the table. "We are family, and family doesn't move into someone's home and rewrite the rules." Then Linda pointed toward me. "You're throwing us out? I'm asking you to leave." Megan stared at Daniel. "Say something." Daniel didn't hide behind silence. "Mom, she's right." Linda looked stunned. "What did you say?" "I should never have agreed to this without Emily." Megan stood up. "So you're choosing her?" Daniel looked at me, then back at them. "I'm choosing my marriage." I calmly explained that they could not stay in our home without both homeowners agreeing. I told them I would help them find temporary accommodation, but living here was no longer an option. There was no screaming, no insults, just a boundary. By 8 o'clock, the first suitcase was packed. By 9, all 3 were standing beside the front door. Linda looked at me. "You'll regret this." I didn't answer. When the door finally closed, I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt exhausted. Daniel stood beside me. "Emily, I'm sorry." I looked at him. "I believe you're sorry. But that's not the same as fixing what you broke." For the first time, Daniel understood that getting his family out was only the beginning. For the first time in 3 days, the house was completely quiet. No footsteps upstairs. No cabinet doors opening. No Linda criticizing the kitchen. No Megan telling me where I could or couldn't sit. Just silence. I stood in the hallway that morning and looked around. Everything was exactly where it belonged. And somehow, it felt different. This was my home again. But I knew something else had changed. My marriage. Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table.
He looked exhausted.
I know saying sorry isn't enough, he said. I didn't answer immediately. Because he was right. An apology couldn't erase the night he let his family walk through our front door with suitcases. It couldn't erase the house rules. It couldn't erase the moment he told me to keep the peace while everyone else treated me like a guest. I need you to understand something, I finally said.
What?
The biggest problem wasn't your mother.
Daniel looked at me.
It was that you decided my voice didn't matter. He nodded slowly. I know. I needed my husband to stand beside me. Instead, I had to defend my own home by myself. He looked down at his hands. I was afraid of disappointing my family. And you weren't afraid of disappointing me? That question stayed between us. For once, Daniel didn't make an excuse.
No.
He admitted that he had spent years avoiding conflict with his mother. Whenever she demanded something, he gave in because it was easier. But this time, his decision had cost him something important: his wife's trust. Over the next few weeks, Daniel started proving that his apology wasn't just another promise. He spoke to his mother directly. He explained that she could visit, but she could not make decisions about her home. He told Megan the same thing. And when his mother became angry, he didn't ask me to fix it. He handled it himself. That mattered more than any dramatic speech. Still, I didn't pretend everything was normal. I told Daniel that trust would have to be rebuilt slowly. One decision at a time. One boundary at a time. One honest conversation at a time. A month later, Linda called me. I expected another argument. Instead, she said quietly, I think I crossed a line. I took a breath. Yes, I said. You did. There was silence. Then she apologized. It wasn't perfect, but it was the first time she had acknowledged what happened without blaming me. I accepted the apology. But I didn't forget the lesson. That night, Daniel and I sat together in our living room. The same room where everything had started falling apart.
He reached for my hand.
I don't ever want you to feel like a stranger here again. I looked around our home. For the first time in days, I smiled. Because I finally understood something. A home isn't protected by walls, expensive furniture, or a locked front door. It's protected by boundaries, by respect, and by the people inside it who are willing to stand beside you when it matters. That night, my mother-in-law had tried to hand me rules for my own home. By morning, I had learned a much bigger rule of my own. Nobody gets to make you feel like a guest in the life you helped build.